Good morning. It is Wednesday, and I want to see if I can go over a couple of the answers to your diagramming. I will put these on GroupMe, but for those of you who are not participating in GroupMe, I kind of wanted to go over that with you. But before we get started, let's have a word of prayer. Father, thank you for this day. Thank you for all that you give us. Thank you for the protection that you have given us. Father, I pray that you would continue to help us as we work from home. I pray that you would help the students to be able to concentrate. I pray that you would help me to be able to explain things in a way that they would understand. Father, I ask blessings upon their families, and I pray that you would be with them in all that they do and say. I pray that you would make this a sweet time for them to spend time together. And I pray that you would protect their health, that you would protect their homes, and that you would show them how much you love them. For it's in Jesus' name we pray. Amen. All right, let's take a look at page 245. I asked you to diagram the exercises, and we learned that what you do was you diagram the independent clause first, and then you diagram the dependent clause underneath it. So our sentence was, when a man's temper gets the best of him, it reveals the worst of him. So your clause was, when a man's temper gets the best of him. That was put in brackets. And then what you're going to do is you're going to say, it reveals the worst of him is going to be that's going to be what you diagram. So you're going to put it as your subject, reveals is your verb, and worst. And then you're going to put underneath worst, you're going to do the phrase of him. Of goes on the slanted line and him on the straight line. And then you're going to do when a man's temper gets the best of him. So you're going to do temper is the subject, temper gets best. And then under temper, you have a, and you also have man's. And under best, you have the, and then you also have the prepositional phrase of him, of on the slanted line, him on the straight line. And then you have a dotted line that goes down from the word reveals to the word gets, and you put the word when on that dotted line. All right, sentence 2. If thine enemy be hungry, give him bread to eat. So you're going to look at your clause is if thine enemy be hungry. That would be your clause. So what you're going to diagram first is give him bread to eat. So in give him bread to eat, there's an understood you as the subject. So you're going to put an X on the subject line. Give would be the verb. Bread. So it would be you, and that would be an X there, give bread. And then you're going to put him underneath the word give, and you're going to put to eat under bread. And then you're going to, underneath that, you're going to diagram if thine enemy be hungry. So you're going to put enemy is the subject, be is your verb, and hungry is your predicate adjective. And then you're going to put thine under enemy. And then there's a dotted line that goes from give to be, and that's where you put the word if. All right, look at number 3. Number 3. Who bravely dares must sometimes risk a fall. Now this time you've got your clause is who bravely dares, and that is a noun clause because that's actually the subject of your sentence. So up on that pedestal, music stand, stilt, whatever you want to call it, you're going to put who dares, and then underneath the dares you're going to have bravely. That's going to be your subject. Then you're going to say put must risk is going to be in your verb section, and then you've got fall. Must risk what? Fall. That's your direct object. Under must risk you've got sometimes, and then under fall you have a. All right, let's look at number 4. Number 4, he that is soon angry dealeth foolishly. All right, on this one your clause is that is soon angry. So that would be in your brackets. And so you're going to have he dealeth foolishly is your sentence. So he is your subject, dealeth is your verb, and underneath dealeth, you're going to have foolishly. Then underneath it, you're going to diagram your clause. That is soon angry. That is your subject. Is the verb, slant the line, and you're going to have angry because you're describing that. So you're going, is a linking verb. So you're going to slant that line, and angry is describing that. Underneath is, you're going to have soon. Now on this one, you have a dotted line that goes from he to that, because that is soon angry is describing he. So that's why the line goes from that to he. I'll also put copies of this on GroupMe so you can actually visually see it. If I show it to you this way, it's backwards. So I'm going to put it on GroupMe, and hopefully you can see that as well. All right, so let's take a look now at your spelling list 25. That would be on page 62, and we're looking at these first 5 vocabulary words. The first 5 vocabulary words. So that would be affect, courier, doting, effect, and erratic. I'm going to read a sentence with the definition inside it, and you tell me which one I'm talking about. The excessively fond young husband gave his bride everything her heart desired. Excessively fond, that would be doting, right? All right. What you can eat, or what you eat, can influence your mood. What you eat can influence your mood. That would be affect with an A. It can influence, affect with an A. All right, let's look at the next one. During the American Revolution, one special messenger for the British hid a secret message in a hollow silver bullet. One special messenger. One special messenger. That would be a courier. So yes, a courier hid a message in a hollow bullet. Here's another one. The sun's reflection on the lake made a great result for the picture. The sun's reflection made a great result. So that would be made a great effect with an E. That would be effect with an E. And then let's look at the last one. The last one would be a lacking direction likely to change heartbeat is a medical condition known as arrhythmia. Okay, a lacking direction likely to change. That would be erratic, erratic. So those are the 5 vocabulary words that you're going to copy the word and the definition 3 times, and that will be your spelling assignment for today. All right, now take a look at your Of Places book. Yesterday, I asked you to read the story, Every Dog Should Own a Man, and that was on page 343. Well, let's look at the Think It Through questions. To whom is the speaker talking? Okay, who is the speaker of this essay is speaking to who? Yes, other dogs that might own his owner's friends. All right, look at number 2. Which items of manhandling did you find most humorous? Well, this, you could have several answers of this, but maybe taking the man for a walk. We think about us taking a dog for a walk, but we don't think about our dog taking the man for a walk, or the dog training the man to fetch the ball. We think we're training the dog, but is the dog really training us? Because he brings us the ball and we throw it. So those were 2 that I thought were humorous. All right, look at number 3. Although the speaker is a man, the ideas are given from the viewpoint of a dog, and many humorous remarks, which are usually applied to dogs, are made about men. Give some examples of these. Okay, so humorous remarks that are usually applied to dogs. So what did you think of? Well, there were a couple that I thought of. It's hard to teach an old man new tricks. Don't we say it's hard to teach an old dog new tricks? But they were saying it's hard to teach an old man new tricks. And what about a man can be a dog's best friend? We always say a dog is man's best friend. So they just kind of turned that one around on us. That was two that I thought were kind of humorous. All right, and then let's look at the last one. Would this essay have been effective if it had been written in a serious manner? And explain your answer. Well, this was kind of a humorous essay, but if it were just written almost like a documentary, really serious, would it have been effective? I don't think so. I think it would have been kind of real dry and boring and not something that we would want to read. So I think he did a good job in making this humorous. Well, let's look at the next pages. The next page is page 346, and this is a poem of the land of storybooks. So let's take a look at this. Let's take a look at this. At evening when the lamp is lit, around the fire my parents sit. They sit at home and talk and sing and do not play at anything. Now, with my little gun, I crawl all in the dark along the wall and follow round the forest track, away behind the sofa back. There in the night, where none can spy, all in my hunter's camp I lie, and play at books that I have read till it is time to go to bed. These are the hills, those are the woods, these are my starry solitudes, and there the river by whose brink the roaring lions come to drink. I see the others far away, as if in firelit camp they lay, and I like to be an Indian scout, around their party prowled about. So when my nurse comes in for me, home I return across the sea and go to bed with backward looks at my dear land of storybooks. So this poem is a child who is using his imagination. I'm sure some of y'all have had to do that too, with us being kind of at home and not being able to go places. Sometimes we just have to go in our imagination, just like this guy did. So let's take a look at the think it through here. What are some of the things that this child experienced in books? Think about the places that he said he was going. That would be what? Hills and the woods. What are the things that he saw? Stars and rivers and lions and people at camp. Number two, what does the poem suggest about the power of books? What about the power of books? Can it transform us from one place to another? Can we kind of forget about where we are when we're reading a book? And I think that's part of what it's talking about. It transforms us from one place to another. It brings people and places to life, and they make us think of real live images in our minds. When you're reading, we connect to what we're reading to. And then there are some alliteration used in the poems. That's where you use the same sounds, the same sounds. There's a lot of alliteration in this poem. You'll see in the first stanza, there's alliteration with the letter A. You'll see at, and, at, and another at, anything. Lots of A's in that part. In the third stanza, you can see night and none, till it's time. Those are alliteration in those lines. So several of these have alliteration. That's the same beginning sound used over and over again. And then it has assonance and consonants. Assonance is the repetition of the same vowel sound, and consonants is the repetition of the same vowel sound. And these can be in the middle of the words. Consonants is usually at the end of the word. So we can see in the first stanza, we can see the last line or the last words, lit and sit. They have that sound at the end. Sing anything. The next one, the CK sound, the track and back sound. And the next to the last one, you've got that AY sound. A in away and lay. You've got the OU sound, out and or scout and about. And in the last one, you have the OO sound, the look and book. Those are assonants when you hear those vowel sounds. All right, let's look at the next page. This says limericks. Limericks. Well, you know what a limerick is because you wrote one a week or so ago. So let's take a look at what this one says. Well, we know a limerick is a form of poetry that usually mentions a person from a particular place in the first line, and then the remaining 4 lines go to tell a funny story or give a humorous description of that person. So let's look at what it says up here in the tan line. A limerick is a type of humorous verse that often includes the name of a place at the end of the first line. Most limericks are anonymous and passed along by word of mouth. So let's look at this one. There was a young man of Devizes whose ears were of different sizes. The one that was small was of no use at all, but the other won several prizes. Here's another one. There was a young lady of Bright whose speed was much faster than light. She set out one day in a relative way and returned home the previous night. I don't know if you can return home the night before. There was a young fellow of Perth who was born on the day of his birth. He was married, they say, on his wife's wedding day, and he died when he quitted the earth. That's interesting. There was a young lady of Lynn who was so exceedingly thin that when she essayed to drink lemonade, she slipped through the straw and fell in. A diner, while dining at Crewe, found quite a large mouse in his stew. Said the waiter, don't shout and wave it about, or the rest will be wanting one too. I don't know about that. I don't want a mouse. All right, and the last one. There was an old man of Tarentum who gnashed his false teeth till he bent 'em. When they asked him the cost of what he had lost, he replied, I can't say, for I rent 'em. Oh, that's kind of gross, just thinking about renting false teeth. But anyway, those were just kind of fun to read. Limericks kind of make you smile when you're reading that. Well, today's assignment for reading in of places is for you to read page 46 and 47. I already did that for you, so you're done for that today. All right, so let's look now at the grammar book. On the grammar book, I want you to turn to page 244. On page 244, you'll see recognizing compound and complex sentences. Well, we know a compound sentence is 2 sentences that are put together with either a coordinating conjunction or a semicolon. We know that a complex sentence has at least 1 independent clause and at least 1 dependent clause. Well, now we're going to kind of put those together, and we're going to realize that there are sentences called compound complex. So let's look at this. A compound complex sentence contains 2 or more independent clauses and 1 or more dependent clause. So this time we know that it's got to be compound, which means it's going to have 2 independent clauses and at least 1 dependent clause. So put a big star by that. Number 2, dependent clauses are introduced by signal words for noun clauses, relatives for adjective clauses, or subordinating conjunctions for adverb clauses. All right. And then number 3, independent clauses are joined by a comma and a coordinating conjunction or by a semicolon. So we're looking in these sentences to say, is there a comma and a conjunction, or is there a semicolon that joins 2 complete thoughts? That's what we're looking for. And then we're also going to find out that there's a dependent clause included. So let's look at these examples. I really like this note on the bottom first. So under 3, look at the note and put a big star by that. It says, It is two or more independent clauses that make any sentence compound. It is one or more dependent clauses that make any sentence complex. When you have both of the above, you have a compound complex sentence. So please put a big star by this, because if you have two independent clauses and at least one more dependent clause, then that sentence is compound complex. It's both. All right, so let's take a look at these sentences. True scholarship consists in knowing not what things exist, but what they mean. It is not memory, but judgment. All right, so do you see that there is a semicolon there? And so this says true scholarship consists in knowing not what things exist, but what they mean. That could be a sentence. It is not memory, but judgment. That can be a sentence. All right, so let's look. Is there a dependent clause here? Well, yeah, it's what things exist and also what they mean. So there's two of them. We have two independent clauses and two dependent clauses. So that makes this sentence compound complex. Look at the next one. You are here to enrich the world, and you impoverish yourself if you forget the errand. All right, do you see the comma and the and there? That's the end of one sentence. You are here to enrich the world, period. You impoverish yourself if you forget the errand. That's another one. So do you see any clauses in that? There is the one that says, if you forget the errand, that's a dependent clause. So that makes this sentence compound complex. Two independent clauses and one dependent clause. And then look at the last one. When you win, say nothing. When you lose, say less. All right, no conjunction there, but you see that semicolon? When you win, say nothing. That could be a sentence. When you lose, say less. That's also a sentence, but it has two dependent clauses. When you win is dependent, and when you lose is dependent. So that's why this is a compound complex sentence. All right, let's look at exercise A down here. Box each comma and coordinating conjunction or semicolon that joins independent clauses. So let's put a box around the words coordinating conjunction and semicolon. Underline every verb twice. So underline the word verb 2 times and every subject once. Underline the word subject once. Put brackets around each dependent clause. So put brackets around the words dependent clause. All right, now remember, when you have a clause, you're also going to have a subject and a verb. So most likely there's going to be a subject and a verb in each independent clause, and a subject and a verb in the dependent clause as well. And sometimes there could be compound too. So let's take a look at this. All right, let's look at number 1. When one door of happiness closes, another opens. But often we look so long at the closed door that we do not see the one which has been opened for us. Okay, that's from Helen Keller. So let's take a look at, well, first of all, let's look and see, are there two independent clauses? Do we see a semicolon, or do we see a comma and a coordinating conjunction? All right, well, let's look. I see a semicolon, but it also has a conjunction after it. So sometimes they do have both. So we should have that in a box. The semicolon behind opens and the word but should be in a box. All right. So now let's look and see what the sentence is. When one door of happiness closes, another opens. All right. Well, let's look. What is the verb there in that? We've got two. We've got closes and we've got opens. And what closes? Door. That should be underlined once. Closes twice. What opens? Another. So that should be underlined once and opens twice. We know the semicolon and but are in a box. Now let's look at the next one. Often we look so long at the closed door that we do not see the one which has been opened for us. All right, well, do we see any clauses here? I see two. I see that we do not see the one which has been opened for us. Okay, that one is one clause, but inside it, there's another one, which has been opened for us. All right, which has been opened for us. What's the verb there? It would be has been opened, so we would underline that twice. What would the subject be? What has been opened? Which, okay? So that would be the subject. Then I see another one, that we do not see, the one which has been opened for us. Okay, that's the whole clause. So we're going to look, what would be the verb in that? It would be do see. So we would underline do see twice, and we would underline we once. That one had a lot of clauses in it. All right, let's look at number 2. I want to kind of do these together because these can be really tricky. All right, number 2, I heard thy voice in the garden, and I was afraid because I was naked. That comes from Genesis 3:10. All right, do we see a comma and a coordinating conjunction? Yes, right there after garden and those should be in a box. I heard thy voice in the garden. That could be a sentence. So what would be the verb in that? Heard. So you'd underline heard twice. Who heard? I did. So that would be your subject. You would underline that once. All right, let's look at the next part. I was afraid because I was naked. Do you see a clause there? It starts with because. Because I was naked should be in a box. And in that phrase, what's your verb? Was. And who was? I was. So that would be the subject, I, and the verb was. Now let's look at the whole part. I was afraid because I was naked. Well, where's the other verb? Was. And what would be the subject? I. Good. All right. Number 3. And the Lord sold them into the hand of Jabin, king of Canaan, that reigned in Hazor, the captain of whose host was Sisera, which dwelt in Harosheth of the Gentiles. That's from Judges 4:2. All right, so let's look. Do we see a semicolon or a comma with a conjunction? Yes, after Hazor. So this is the first sentence. And the Lord sold them into the hand of Jabin, king of Canaan, that reigned in Hazor. All right, so do you see in that sentence, do you see a clause? Yes, that reigned in Hazor is your clause. So what would the verb be? Reigned. What reigned? That. That would be your subject of that clause. All right, so now let's look at the whole sentence. And the Lord sold them into the hand of Jabin, king of Canaan, that reigned in Hazor. So what's the verb there? Right, sold. And who sold? Lord. That would be your subject. So you'd underline the subject once and the verb twice. All right, let's look at the next part of the sentence. The captain of whose host was Sisera, which dwelt in Harosheth of the Gentiles. All right, so do you see in that sentence, do you see a clause? Which dwelt in Harosheth of the Gentiles. Okay, and what would be the verb? Dwelt. And the subject would be which. All right, so let's look at the next part. The captain of whose host was Sisera. What's the verb there? Was. And the subject? Host. All right, number 4. The happiness of your life depends on the quality of your thoughts. Therefore, guard accordingly and take care that you entertain no notions unsuitable to virtue and reasonable nature. All right, do you see a semicolon or a comma and a coordinating conjunction? 2 of them. Oh, all right, well, let's look at the first one. The first one has a semicolon, okay? Right after thought. The happiness of your life depends on the quality of your thought. That could be a sentence. So what would the subject be there? Depends. What depends? Happiness. So happiness would be underlined once and depends twice. All right, let's look at the next part. Therefore, guard accordingly and take care that you entertain no notions unsuitable to virtue and unreasonable nature. All right, do you see that comma and that coordinating conjunction and? Okay, so you've got, that should be in a box, all right? But let's look at this. Therefore, guard accordingly. Therefore, guard accordingly. What's the verb? Guard. And what would the subject be? It would be understood you, right? So you would put you above that and put the single underline under you. Okay, it's saying you guard accordingly. And take care. And take is your verb. Who takes? Another understood you. You take. So you would put that above the word take. You put you above there. All right. And then I see a clause, that you entertain no notions unsuitable to virtue and reasonable nature. So you would put all of that in brackets, that you entertain notions unsuitable to virtue and reasonable nature. What's the verb in that? Entertain. Who entertain? You. So you would underline you once and entertain twice. Look at the last one. To be sure, I must, and therefore I may assume that your silence gives consent. Do you see that semicolon and the word and? That should be in a box. To be sure, I must. That's a sentence. What would the verb be? Must. That should be underlined twice, and I should be underlined once. All right, look at the next part. To be sure, I must, and therefore I may assume that your silence gives consent. Do you see a clause there? That your silence gives consent. Okay, so what would be the verb in that? Gives, and the noun would be silence. And so you, what would the whole sentence be? I may assume. That's going to be the main part of the sentence without the clause. So your verb is may assume, and your subject is I. So we would underline may assume twice and I once. All right, that was a tough one, wasn't it? Okay, that's we're going to look at page 245. 245 talks about diagramming these sentences. So we're going to look at how to diagram a compound complex sentence. So look at what it says. Compound complex sentences are diagrammed by putting the independent clauses under each other in the same order that they appear in the sentence. So we're going to put them under. So let's look. Do good to them that hate you and pray for them which despitefully use you. Okay, first of all, let's find the clauses. It's done for you. That hate you and which despitefully use you. So we're going to diagram do good to them. Okay, we're going to do good to them. And so we're going to put, who's it talking about to do good? Understood you. So we would put an X on that first line, just like you see in your example. You do good. All right. Now it says to do good to them. All right. So let's look. Here's the first one. That hate you. So notice how it goes under, dotted line under them, and you've got that hate you. Now you've got and do good to them that hate you. We've got and then pray for them. So who's going to pray? You pray. And for them is their prepositional phrase. And then underneath that is another clause, which despitefully use you. So you're going to put which use you, how? Despitefully. But do you notice that you've got that dotted line coming down from them, and also you've got the little stair step, dotted line, straight line, dotted line with that and, because that's the coordinating conjunction that joins that hate you, or do good to them that hate you and pray for them which despitefully use you. So we've got to put that and in the middle. Okay, all right, look at the next one. If one desires contentment, he submits to what God wills but some always refuse God's best. Okay, so let's take a look at this one. Do you see a clause? If one desires contentment. So that is the first clause. And then we're going to look at the sentence. He submits to, oh, here's another one, what God wills. There's another clause there, okay? So we're going to look at he submits is going to be your subject. He submits, and then you've got to, and then you've got God wills what is up on the pedestal there. Now we've got to put this but in here, okay? But let's go back. We have one clause in front of it. We've got if, and you see that line coming from submits, one desires contentment, and that line comes down, dotted line from submits to desires, and if. Now we've got the word but. Some always refuse God's best. Some refuse best. When do they refuse it? Always. What kind? Who's best? God's best. So we've got that but that's going to join submits to refuse. All right. So today's assignment is for you to complete exercise. So you're going to diagram these sentences in exercise. Look for the clauses, and remember you do them in the order. So just look back up at the top of 245. And I want you to try to do these on your own. I will go over the answers tomorrow. I will also put them on GroupMe tomorrow, tomorrow night, and let you double check to make sure that you did it correctly. Okay, I hope you have a great day. Enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. Keep working. Y'all, don't get tired of doing good. That's what the Bible says. Don't get tired of doing good. This is still 8th grade. Even though we're not meeting in the building, we're still working on 8th grade work. And I want you to be prepared for when you get to high school next year. Have a great afternoon.